Grenzo the Dungeon Warden is an old school cEDH deck that uses Doomsday to win the game as a one-card combo. He has been a little bit abandoned due to the fact that there are better commanders and better cEDH decks out there these days, but I would like to reanimate him a little bit and showcase some upgrades or tweaks to it that you can go differently. Now, in the description below you will find two links to two different Grenzo tapped out pages lists. One of them is more of the old school, fast, consistent and all in on the Doomsday. The other one has a backup, a more grindy play style, my take on him you could say. It also runs Doomsday of course as a one card combo, but if that fails and that doesn't really happen, we can use Grenzo in that build to grind our opponents out of the game by drawing hate. And in this video we are going to be talking about two things. First, the Doomsday package, how Grenzo wins through it, and second, the hate draw, how Grenzo can become a card drawing engine. Step 1. Cast Grenzo for at least 3 mana or more. He needs to be above a 2/2 at the very least. Then, on an upcoming turn later, cast Doomsday for 3 black mana. Now what Doomsday does is that you will search your library and graveyard for 5 cards, then exile the rest. Then put those cards on top of your library in whatever order you want. Now Grenzo have a secondary ability, 2 mana, put the bottom card of your library into your graveyard. If it's a creature with power below his power, you will put that creature card in play. So with this we can fix that we get a perfect creature curve with Grenzo from the Doomsday. Once that resolved, all you need to do is activate Grenzo for 2 mana. We've currently spent 5 mana, and that's all we're gonna need. The first thing we find from the bottom of our deck is Priest of Urabrask, giving us 3 red mana. We'll use 2 of that red mana to activate Grenzo once more and put the bottom card of our deck into play, and that's Kiki-Yiki. Now we tap Kiki-Yiki and make a token, a copy of this. This will give us 3 more red mana. We currently have 4 red mana. We'll use 2 of that to activate this ability once more and find Celia's Conscription. This will now untap Kiki-Yiki and you have infinite tokens of Celia's Conscription from the Kiki-Yiki. We've currently assembled the Kiki-Yiki Celia's Conscription for a 1-card combo Doomsday. All that we really need is 5 mana, some way of getting this to our hand, a bunch of tutors inside the deck would be good, and then this commander with at least a +1/+1 counter on him, because the Celia's Conscription is a free. But what if there is an Aven Mind Sensor in play? Trust me, you don't wanna cast your Doomsday if there is an Aven Mind Sensor in play. But also, if you cast Doomsday, one opponent might use a negate to send it to the grave. Let's move on to the second part of this video, the more grindy strategy, relying on Grenzo's secondary ability to draw cards. I once made a video about interactive win cons, cards that if left unchecked could become win cons, cards that could win the game on their own, but also were interacting with your opponents in somehow. For example, Nezumi Grave Robber. For 2 mana, this is kinda a semi-version of Scavenging Ooze. For 2 mana you will exile a card from an opponent's graveyard, and if that was the last card it will flip to this creature, which is a 4/2, but with a new ability, for 5 mana put a creature card from any graveyard into play under your control. And this can become a win con if it flips, and if you have a good amount of targets from your opponents or your own graveyard by the way, that you can sit there and resurrect. You can do this in instant speed, so this can become a very grindy win con, but also being an interaction against your opponent with this first ability. Another example is Olivia Voldaren. She will grow by activating this ability and deal damage to creatures. She's really good at destroying Notion Thieves, Birds of Paradise and other 1 toughness creatures. But if you have more mana you can kill Captain Cesay and Laboratory Maniacs. I don't really recommend going for this ability, because when Olivia is dead, they will regain all the creatures you've stolen. But then again, this ability will also put +1/+1 counters on Olivia, and she will grow and become kinda dangerous. And here's the trick with Grenzo, that Grenzo can actually draw these creature cards at random from the bottom of your deck and put them directly into play, in instant speed by the way, in an opponent's end step. But you can also find a bunch of hatebears through Grenzo's ability from the bottom of your deck. Here are two good examples of hatebears that Wizard of the Coast have recently printed, and I think that Wizard of the Coast are starting to learn how to make good and solid red hatebears. Now these two creature cards are not gonna lock out your opponents completely, but it's gonna take a lot of damage to their face if they wanna go for Icicron Scepter Dramatic Reversal. If they don't have enough life, then this will actually prevent your opponents from trying to win with the Icicron Scepter Dramatic Reversal until they get rid of this hatebear. Now, if you have a high ratio of creature cards inside your deck, then it will be kinda consistently, not 100% guaranteed, that you will nail a creature card each time you activate this ability. Like Grim Lava Monster or maybe Gorilla Shaman are two really good creature cards that are interacting with your opponents. They are also on a very low mana cost, which means that if you draw them, you will be able to cast them early in the game on a low amount of lands that you yourself have before you're starting to go for this grindy grain with Grenzo. And you can get some random, each opponent sacrifice a creature, or well, you have to sacrifice this thing as well. Or you have this hatebear that can lock down activated abilities. And the reason why I think we are able to assemble a deck like this is because that there are enough creature cards that would be good in general that could go into a deck and fill your deck with a high amount of creatures, giving you a high ratio of creatures. This is another good example. If you have 2 mana in sorcery speed, you can destroy a non-black creature. But if you accidentally nail this with Grenzo, you get that 3/2 with fear, and then you could actually go for some face damage, which could calculate into what Vishina Heretic is doing, destroying artifacts but also dealing damage in the process. This is a very good inclusion for Grenzo. Treasure Nabber. Stealing your opponent's artifact, this is kinda an anti-hatebear against artifact, and then use these artifacts to grind even harder with Grenzo, putting more creature cards in play. Like this thing, that is also gonna be preventing Storm. Each time an opponent casts a dark ritual or something of that sort, they will take 2 damage, also calculating into the more damage that we are currently dealing throughout the game. And then of course, one of the stronger red hatebears in the game, Magos of the Moon. And here is a very solid black hatebear for just 1 black mana. That is perfect. If you control a red permanent, this thing is active. And whenever an opponent draws a card, this thing will deal 1 damage to them. Also stacking up and calculating in damage to your opponents, which will make that your harsh mentor suddenly becomes kinda dangerous. Now I'm going to include one more thing here. Perforos, God of the Forge. For 4 mana, a 6/5 that is probably never going to become a creature. It could become a creature. We have a bunch of things in this deck that will give you devotion to red. But whenever you activate Grenzo and successfully and lucky enough to nail a creature card, this will trigger and deal 2 damage to all of your opponents, continuously stacking up with your other cards that are dealing damage. And this could turn into a very grindy strategy where you're tutoring for Perforos, God of the Forge if you're failing to Doomsday, if your opponent is negating your Doomsday, and then just sit there with your Grenzo and grinding out hatebears that is gonna control your opponents in somehow while dealing damage with Perforos, God of the Forge. You actually don't need Perforos, God of the Forge because some of these things are able to deal damage to your opponents anyway. Like this is a Fear creature card, 3/2, that will eventually be able to hit damage to your opponents. I guess I could showcase a creature that is able to tutor for the Perforos. So here is a Dimir House Guard with Transmute. You can discard this and search your library for a card with the same converted mana cost. It doesn't have to be black 3, it just have to be 4, and Perforos is 4. And Grenzo could accidentally, if you're lucky, find this and put it into play. And that is something. Here is another creature I would like to showcase, Fairy Macabre. Sure, it's not a hatebear, will do nothing except being a 2/2 flyer in play if Grenzo puts it into play from the bottom of your deck. But if you draw this card, it's actually a good interaction against graveyards, because you can discard it without paying any mana whatsoever, and it's impossible to use a negate or force of will or counterspell against it. You can use Stifle only, and you're you can discard this to exile up to 2 cards from graveyards, even different graveyards by the way. And this is a good interaction in instant speed that you can use against graveyard strategies. You could also accidentally nail a tutor like Imperial Recruiter, a 1/1 that will find maybe this thing. We could also find Dire Fleet Daredevil, which is also not useless, it has some use. You could exile a card from an opponent and maybe cast a brainstorm of some sort. It could go random and you don't know what you can do with it. Maybe you don't have any mana to do anything with it, but sometimes it's usable. It's also something that you could cast from your hand to do something. In the end, I think it's okay. It will upgrade the list. Another creature I would like to mention is a very strange dork. So this creature have an ability to, for 2 mana, to give a creature trample. And by the way, Grenzo is usually very big when you're going for this kind of strategy, because you can pay X into him and he will become something of a 4/4, a 5/5 or a 6/6. So giving him trample isn't useless. And then when you've activated this ability 3 times, giving Grenzo trample 3 times, you will gain 8 red mana. So this is a mana dork that gives trample and give you 2 mana in the end. Now let's increase the ratio even more, but not looking at creatures. Here is a Drownyard Temple that you can return from your graveyard into play for 3 mana in instant speed. So if you accidentally don't nail a creature card but nail this instead, you can use it to put it into play. I can also showcase this thing. I might actually flip it over here. So here's the card, Ribbons. 2 black mana and X and each opponent lose X life. And that is kinda good because that's something that we're currently trying to do. Trying to decrease our life total of all our opponents slowly and steady. But you can also use this ability. If you draw Cut, it's a sorcery speed for 2 mana, deal 4 damage to a creature card. And that isn't useless. One more thing that I kinda wanna showcase is this thing, a 1/5. Don't think about this ability, the middle ability. It's a draft creature, but you can still play it, it's still kinda legal. Tap it to put a card from your graveyard on the bottom of your deck. And yeah, that's kinda good. It's also on CMC4, so we could use this creature to tutor for it. But also here you have a cool interaction. Sacrifice a creature and you will regenerate the mere house guard. We don't really care much about that, but it gets pretty cool with these 2 creatures. So you could sacrifice this in instant speed, use this in instant speed, and then use Grenzo in instant speed and bring this into play. And then you can use counter spells because this entered in instant speed against your opponents. But you could also use Shriekmaw the same way. Sacrifice Shriekmaw to this, bring it back into play with this, and then put it into play with this. And here you have it. Instant speed, destroy target non-black or artifact creature. And ongoingly, you can grind your opponents quite heavily with this. Also, we're only playing 2 colors, so Nykthos Shrine into Nyx will definitely be good in a deck like this. Hopefully you draw it. And then of course, if you have a high amount of swamps in your deck, then Cable Coffers will also give you a tremendous amount of mana, or have the potential of giving you a lot of mana. I think Nykthos have the potential of giving you a bit more. And when you've drawn out a huge amount of creature cards with this, Nykthos will produce a tremendous amount of mana. But remember, first main WinCon plan A is Doomsday and tutor for it with cards like Diabolic Intent, Demonic Tutor, Vampiric Tutor and Imperial Seal. Important cards to have in Grenzo Doomsday. In the end, however, I think that Grenzo is something of a maybe semi-competitive deck, a high power deck, because he's lacking blue and green. And generally you want to have at least 3 color identities. In the end, however, I still think that Grenzo have a lot of potential. When with more hatebears maybe coming up in the future, he could get a lot stronger. It's always nice to make videos for you guys like this. I hope you liked the video and take care.